Money. It plays a major role in our everyday lives, whether we're spending it, making it, talking about it, or even trying to conquer it. Money is as important to human survival as oxygen and water. Turn on your television, open a newspaper, or surf the internet. Money is everywhere. It changes everything and affects everybody. Join CPA Jane Honeck and psychotherapist Spencer Melnick and discover the real relationship between you and your own money, how it makes you feel, and what effect it has on your very being. Part of the Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Welcome to the Money Dynamic.
Good evening. This is your host, Jane Honeck. Spencer is taking a few months off, so I'm hosting the show alone, but we're here on the first official Sunday of fall, and I don't know about you, but I sure do love fall. It's my favorite season of the year. Our show, The Money Dynamic, is part of the Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, broadcast from 1510 a.m. WUFC in Boston. We air in 5 New England states at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the fourth Sunday of every month, and we're streamed live at the Dream Vision 7 Radio website. That's dreamvision7radio.com. We're replayed on the dreamvision7radio.com every Friday at 3 p.m. and 3 a.m. Eastern Time. For a full station schedule, including our affiliate show times around the world, go to dreamvision7radio.com. The Money Dynamic radio show is different for a few reasons. First of all, rarely do we talk about the numbers of money. We don't talk about what you do with your money, but we ask you why you do what you do with your money. We ask you to focus on how you think and feel about money, how you react and interact with it. The Money Dynamic is all about building a new awareness of money in your life. And finally, we hope to teach you about a whole new way to communicate about money because, face it, it just isn't very easy to talk about money. To find out more about us and our programs, go to themoneydynamic.com, janehoneck.com, or check us out on social media. And we love to hear your questions and comments, so please connect with us through info@themoneydynamic.com. So today, I'm happy to bring back a fellow CPA, Bob Wheeler. He's speaker and author of The Money Nerve, and he has offered to come back to the show to talk about gender, a topic that I think is going to be pretty interesting. Bob is a certified public accountant practicing in Los Angeles, and he is CFO of the Comedy Store. I think that would be an interesting story to ask him about. But you can find out more about Bob at www.themoneynerve.com. Although Bob and I come from a variety of backgrounds and experiences, we have a lot in common about how we think and talk about money. So we'll see tonight if that holds true when we start talking about gender. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah. So I just have to ask you, what's it like to be the CFO of the Comedy Store? Is it wild and crazy like I like to think it would be?
Well, it's not quite as glamorous and exciting as everybody thinks. It's still numbers, and it's still budgets, and it's still taxes, and making sure that you're bringing in more than you're spending.
Yeah, I guess that's what it always comes down to. But can you make them laugh a little bit while you're doing it at least?
Usually, hopefully. It's fun. I do get to meet a lot of fun folks. You know, I've Gallagher, George Carlin, Chris Rock. I mean, just tons of people come through that door. So it's really it is fun, but it's not quite as glamorous as everybody thinks.
Well, it sounds pretty exciting. I mean, an accountant working with fun people, maybe you end up being funny just by osmosis.
Just by osmosis.
Right. So Bob, you suggested tonight's topic about money and gender, you know, and I kind of shortcut it to Venus or Mars. Who's better at managing money? So
right.
let's just cut right to the chase. And who's better at managing money, Bob?
Well, you know, it really depends on the person. I don't know if you can say all women are better at handling the money. but I think certainly perspective, what people have learned, and what they bring to the table in terms of, planning for a rainy day, looking at it as a form of security in terms of tracking the budget and being in charge of that. And so, I would, women that are in charge of the budget, I would say, tend to be a lot more on point than maybe the women that don't have to handle the budget, because they're in a different place. Women that don't have to deal with the budget can just sort of say, oh, I've got somebody else taking care of me. I don't have to deal with it. But women that are in charge know that they got to be in charge.
But wouldn't you say that holds true for men also?
I think so, but different studies have shown that women tend to be a little more cautious. Men tend to take a lot more risk, or they feel more confident that they'll bounce back if they invest in some entrepreneurial thing that doesn't turn out. And women tend to be just a little bit more frugal and practical in terms of overall gender.
I think I have to disagree with you, Bob.
Do you?
Well, in my own personal life, I'm the one with the entrepreneurial spirit. I'm the one willing to take risks on long shots. I'm the one that sees always another opportunity. My husband, I kind of have to pull him along with me. He's a little more practical. He's a little more cautious. So I'm not sure if that's necessarily a gender issue or a style issue.
That may be true. I mean, do you think you're with your female friends, do you consider yourself to be in the same mindset as them, or would you say that you're a little bit more risk taker than your friends?
No, I think I'm pretty much in the same group, and I think that's probably because I'm attracted to people who think similar to me. So a lot of my friends are also entrepreneurs and have also created, their own way of making money and managing their lives. So again, I think it goes back to style rather than gender. Yeah,
it's really a hard thing to measure because there's so many components to somebody's perspective. Is it their perspective coming from gender, or is their perspective coming from, culture, or their particular upbringing with their parents? It's interesting.
I was going to say, I think that's where you hit it, their upbringing with parents. My father was an entrepreneur, so that's what I saw. That's what he modeled. I mean, that said, my mother didn't get involved with the money. Why I chose to model my life after him instead of her, I can't really say for sure. But I think it's, rather than gender, it may have to do with more the environment we were brought up with and what our natural, again, I go back to style, attracts us. Which way do we see our lives going?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that, not the one thing, but I think there is overall culturally, seems to have been taught to a lot of women, whether conscious or unconscious, that you need to marry somebody that's going to be a breadwinner. You need to wait for your prince on a white horse to come in and rescue you. And I've had a lot of women bring this up in workshops where they feel like they were taught that they were supposed to wait for some outside source to come in and save them, and a lot of women have said that it's not ladylike to know too much about money and things like that. That's best left for the men, which is very old-fashioned thinking. And yet I hear people still saying that they see their nieces, their nephews, their friends' children being sort of taught that message. And I think that's significantly changing. But, even today it's the average is women make 77 cents for every dollar that a man makes. And
for sure we don't have equality out there.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. There have been a lot of societal messages out there about what our respective roles should be in, when it comes to money management. I have to laugh when I think back to my first husband. Before we were married, he said no wife of his would ever work.
Right.
Well, I have never not worked a day of my life.
Right.
Now, I don't know if it's because, given my style again and the way I look at life, you give me a challenge and you're going to have a challenge.
Right.
You say no wife of yours is going to work, well, just let me show you.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot, I think it kind of goes back to the nature and nurture question. What have we been nurtured with, and then what is our nature going to do with it?
Right. Absolutely. And I think the good thing is that it's changing, but it's interesting. When I was first working on the book, I was my first editor consultant. We were talking, and she said to me, "Well, I don't really have any money issues, and it's just money, and it doesn't affect the way I deal with people." And I said, "Well, that's really interesting. Let me ask you something. You've got a mom, a dad, and a sister. When you go out to lunch with them, is it the same?" And she said, "Oh, no, of course not. When I go out to lunch with my dad, I'm his little girl, so he has to pay. When I go out with my mom, I feel really bad for her because she's a single mom, so I pay for her. And with my sister, we're equal, so we split the bill." Mm-hmm. And so she had a role for each person based on mom's position, dad's position, and siblings' position.
And very clearly, money was affecting her life.
Absolutely.
And her relationship with
once she saw that, she went, "Oh, I guess I do use money in different ways with different people."
Yeah. And I think that's the heart of the issue is male and female perspectives get in the way if we're not aware of them.
Right. Absolutely.
Once we're aware of them, then we can make different choices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I did a workshop with a woman who had told me that gender didn't play a role for her. And she said, "No, I've really thought about it, and it absolutely does not play a role." And over the week, because we would meet once a week, she came back the next week and she said, "Oh my goodness, I did some journaling around some of the stuff that you asked me to work on." She said, "I realized when I was 13, I made a decision because my mom was a single mom working 2 jobs to put food on the table for me. I decided it was not ladylike to know anything about money, and I made sure that I would never be like my mom because women are supposed to be pleasant, fun, and attractive and not hardworking and stressed." And she made a decision, and she could look back and see where she sabotaged a lot of stuff.
Yeah, because once you make an unconscious decision like that, it really is managing your life for you.
Right.
You're not making any decisions based on what you really want. You're leading your life based on that decision you made when you were 12 years old.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with today. Yeah.
Right.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. It's so interesting how we can say, "Oh, that's not an issue for me. That has nothing to do with how I lead my life." And all you have to do is plant that one little seed, and then they start going, "Oh, yeah. Oh, geez, there it is again. Oh, wow, here it is one more time." And they can see how they really haven't been making their own decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it in, it's funny. Sometimes I'll have certain clients, certain men will say, "Oh, my wife, she just loves to spend. I earn and she spends." Now, that may or may not be true, but that's a belief system that he may have set up, and then anything she does just reconfirms, even if it has nothing to do with the reality of the situation. Exactly. He'll just go with that belief. That's the way women are. Isn't that cute?
Yeah. So operating from these unconscious beliefs isn't really a gender issue. Both men and women have it.
Absolutely.
We both have these unconscious ways of dealing with money that can ruin a relationship very quickly if neither party are aware of it. And if only one party becomes aware of it, it can still ruin the relationship. So you really have to develop an open communication to be able to get beyond those gender biases.
Absolutely. It's funny that you say communicate, because constantly when I'm talking with people, I'll say it's communication, communication, communication. And in relationships, partnerships, personal and business, it's communication, communication, communication. You can still have your different styles. You can still have your different ways of looking at things. And if you're not communicating, you're just not going to be on the same page.
Yeah, and I think the most important part of that communication is being willing to listen.
Right.
Being willing to be open to the other person's point of view. Because until we can hear that other person's point of view, there isn't any real communication. So often we think of communication as talking, and we end up talking at the other person instead of talking with the other person. And I think real communication happens when we shut our mouth and we listen.
Yes. I was always told that hearing somebody else's point of view is more important than ours because we already know ours really well and we can defend it to the death. And so being able to hear somebody else share their point of view is actually the point we should be hearing.
Right. And that's what, boy, nobody is good at that. So it sounds like you do a lot of workshops with women about these gender issues. Is that true?
I do. I've given some presentations with women and women's empowerment groups, and I'm actually getting ready to do a project with Core Energetics, which is another thing that I do with a women's group, and really just working with these women that are trying to change their lives, that either through addiction or spousal abuse or whatever, they've sort of gotten into a bad situation and they're working their way out. And it's just really interesting and, for me, rewarding to work with people and actually help give them some tools to shift their perspectives.
So I just can't help but say that I find it very interesting that they bring a man in to teach him how to do it differently.
Well, it's funny. I get that comment. When I show up, people say, "Why are you here? You're a man." And I say, well, first of all, I'm a human being, and so we all have information to bring. So whether I'm a man or not, if the information is relevant information, it's relevant information. The second thing is I think that gives me a unique perspective is I did grow up with 4 sisters. And
okay, you just won some credibility with that.
And so really seeing how they were treated differently as women and seeing how I got certain advantages that they didn't,
right,
just because of my gender, and seeing the struggles that they had. For example, my sister, when she had a baby, all the women in her work were so angry that she wanted to continue working because real women stay home and take care of their babies. Right. And she had a lot of women coming at her. This is in the South, and she couldn't believe it. The women in her office all really disapproved that she would actually try to continue to work. And or the same thing with the money, seeing people not being able to get their money or that they're worth, or the women's job is it's a cute little additional second income, but it's not really the breadwinner money. It's it doesn't count. Yeah. So I've seen a lot of the different treatments, and so I think I hopefully I'm a little more sensitive to.
Yeah, it sounds like you lived the differences through your sisters rather than just read about them or learned about them in a book.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I think that's where you can really get to the depth of how beliefs that were fed, how messages that were fed as a child or through our family can really affect who we are in the world and how we deal with money and other issues in our life. Absolutely, and it's and I think the other thing too is being a white male. I also saw how a lot of opportunities came to me that other people didn't get, just for the mere fact of those identifying factors, nothing to do with my skill set, and that was an eye opener for me as well. And it sounds like rather than saying, "Whoa, lucky me," you felt uncomfortable with those extras. Absolutely. I absolutely did. Absolutely. What in your belief system led you to feel uncomfortable with it rather than go, woohoo, here I go?
Well,
that's getting kind of deep, but what do you think?
Well, I think for me, I was always taught, and I think truthfully taught, that I should be rewarded based on my merits and my skills and what I bring to the table, and that everybody brings that in. And since I saw my sisters as equal, and I saw that I was getting advantages just because I was a male, it didn't feel right, because I wanted it to be because of what I brought to the table, not of who I was.
Right.
It just didn't feel right.
So would you say that's kind of the core of your message that you're taking to these women that you speak to?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we all have the right, men, women, all have the right to be in our full power, and there's not one better than the other. We all just show up and be ourselves fully.
So how do you get to that place of knowing that you're equal, that you deserve the same as everybody else? How do you get beyond those beliefs that have been shoved down our throats?
Well, in the workshops, we do a lot of processing, exercises, journaling, role-playing, and really doing different things to help bring it to awareness. And then we talk about these new awareness insights and how can we then make adjustments going forward.
Yeah. So, again, it's back to awareness, because awareness lets us see that there are other options, that there are different choices to be made. And then, as you said, communication.